Hi, Penny. Welcome to our first episode of season 2. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you. I hope you're good too.
Yes, excellent. So happy to have you here as today we will be talking about joy. So, Penny, what's joy? Tell me.
Woohoo! That's joy. I guess it's kind of a word that went out of fashion, I think, a little bit, and it seems to be coming back again. And joy is just something that comes from within, I feel, and it's just a feeling of pleasure and possibly excitement. It could be for celebration, or it could be a place of peace. It could be uh, like any emotion, I guess it can come in different levels of joy, but it's certainly something that comes from within rather than somebody giving it to you in the sense of people make you laugh, therefore it's funny. So joy is more of a internal process and emotion, and it just rises up and is exciting.
Oh, wow. Okay. Going back to our last conversation in which we introduced some of the podcast topics.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned keeping the joy. So what's keeping the joy about?
Well, I think it's important to keep the joy in life generally, and to try to see the good in what's going on, and narrowing it down into our spiritual pathway or our mediumistic unfolding. And even when we're working as a medium, I think it's really important to keep the joy, to keep that sense of excitement and wonder. I think I was talking about it like that childlike sense of excitement and wonder. And I think sometimes as adults, we get a little bit bogged down. We take life too seriously, or events happen in which we get sidetracked and immersed into other things. And sometimes when we're on our mediumistic or spiritual journey, we get bogged down with details and frustrations, and of course we want to do a good job, of course we want to be as good or better than we are at that particular time, but that can stifle the joy. And I think it's really important to remember that um, connecting somebody with their loved one, or it coming to that searching and coming to that realization that there's more to life than this physical world, and seeking your truth in that brings you a sense of joy and excitement and childlike wonder. And I just don't think we should forget that in any aspect of our life.
I can see how that can be somewhat overwhelming for the overthinkers, um, or some of us overthinkers, as I'm one of those. So I want to ask, how do we go about it? Is there a process we should be mindful of, or do you have a 5-step recipe for keeping the joy? Any recommendations here to ease the process in any way?
Well, I'm an overthinker too, so if I knew all the answers, that would be a wonderful thing. But I guess I wouldn't be where I am and what I am today if that was the case. So I suppose it was a revelation to me, and I suppose for all of us, we have to kind of take a step back sometimes. And maybe this global pandemic, everybody's has taken a step back one way or another, and and ask themselves what's really important in life, what really matters. You know, yes, we all want job security. Yes, we all want to earn enough money to pay our bills and either live comfortably or well. we all have different aspirations in that area, but ultimately what really matters is our love for each other, our enjoyment in life, and what's going to bring us that enjoyment, and what balance do we need. So, you know, a lot of people before the pandemic were overworked, underpaid would have been a pretty good saying. A lot of people commuted for hours to get to work and get home from work. I know I did that for a number of years. And, you know, we've all sort of realized that to some capacity we can work from home because we've had to. That might just change how global organizations operate. It might, I wonder, will that change the landscape of London? Here I go off hypothesizing about all kinds of things. But, you know, ultimately, I think a lot of people have probably, as I have, reevaluated what's important in life. And for me, it was realizing that keeping the joy in what you do helps you to be better at what you do. And even just looking at the little blessings. And sometimes we need our friends to remind us of those little blessings. So then we get back to that place of joy. So I don't think there's a hard and fast answer, but I think we can help each other get there.
That's beautiful. And it's comforting to know that friends, that this is a collaborative actually process of sorts that I find that's quite beautiful. Turning to mediumship, what about joy in mediumship? And moreover, how does this tie in with the progressive soul?
So for the last couple of months, I've been talking to students and mentoring students and trying to remind them about the joy in what they're doing. And because I know for myself, when I went through a lot of my training and development, I am an overthinker, and I want to know how it works, and I have a logical mind, and there's all those kinds of things that I had to battle through. And stepping back, you realize that you disempower yourself by getting frustrated. You disempower yourself by overthinking and the logical mind over analyzing every little step of what you do. And in mediumship, you need to open up the imagination. You need to be in that joyful place and sense of wonder, because it's a higher vibration if we talk about it in energy terms. And to be in that higher vibration means that the spirit world and the inspirational aspects and the way our minds work in an inspirational aspect will open up more. And then we feel the excitement of what we're doing. Let's remember, not everybody can do it. Let's remember, it can bring comfort and joy and or peace and all kinds of wonderful things to other people. So as for the progressive soul, I think it's finding that balance and understanding that we're not always going to be in a place of joy. It's impossible to stay in a place of ecstasy and elation. And if we could stay there, we would, wouldn't we? But there's no way of doing that at all. And so when we appreciate, we're going to have our ups and downs and undulations. It's the way in which we act and react towards our circumstances. So if we appreciate, we can't stay in a sense of elation and joy all the time. What we can do is when we're going through a difficult time, or if we recognize in mediumistic terms that we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to achieve or perform or understand or whatever might be the issue at the time, then we could be disenabling ourselves. So when we go back into the place of joy, we open up energetically a more positive experience, which then helps us move forward.
And I guess this ties in with something we talked about in season 1 about our universal connection and how things flow and we attract certain things, we push away certain things, and there's that energy interconnectivity almost that binds us to the present in a way. So how can we, I'm not even sure how to formulate this, how can we go about it perhaps in what would be an approach to get closer to joy if, in this very convoluted, chaotic, unstable world? How, what could we do if just to get a bit closer towards it, perhaps if we're not, there just yet?
Geez, that's a big question, and you've got me on a time limit. So how am I going to answer that one in just a few simple words or just a couple of minutes? I think really that just takes us, or it takes my mind to reflection and contemplation and stopping and pausing. And the reason why I say that is, I guess it's, to some extent, it can be easy for me to say, hey, take a step back from your life and look at what brings you joy. Like, that's kind of a platitude, but it's true. There's lots of really good books and teachings about, going through your wardrobe and looking at every item of clothing and, does it bring you joy or not? And do you keep it or not? Start with simple things. Look around your space. Does everything that you have bring you joy, or is it a burden? Is it cluttered, or do you have aspirations for something else, and what can you do about it to get there? So there's lots of different ways that you can start small and build your way up. And certainly I've gone through exercises like going through not just my wardrobe, my whole little flat here. I moved in here with a borrowed camp chair and blow up bed and nothing else. And then 10 years later, it was rammed full of all sorts of things. And I wanted them at the time, but I didn't need them ongoing. So then there was that whole process of uncluttering, like, do I need this? Can somebody else use this more than me? And I think that brings me a sense of joy, because I've been the custodian of something for a period of time, and it's nice to pass that on. I'm a big lover of old books, old furniture, arts and crafts, Victorian things. Those things stand the test of time if people look after them. And, more modern furniture tends to fall apart after a year. It doesn't have the strength or the durability. And I think we have become, in our mindset, a throwaway society. Instead of using a cup and drinking water in a refillable vessel, we bought bottled water for years, and now the world is cluttered with plastic and blah blah blah. So we can go into all these types of things, but you can equate that to your own spirituality and your own life, and you can move through your physical items into what brings you joy in life. Who brings you joy in life? What type of people do you want to attract to you? What's your life path gonna look like if you're more at peace and content and joyful about the things that you do have, that you are a custodian of for a period of time, and be happy about letting it go that it has a new life, that somebody else might recycle, upcycle something. And I guess it's kind of the same in our lives, you know. So what start small, work your way up, and you might find that you move into realms that you hadn't otherwise thought of, and then your mind becomes less cluttered by distractions of what annoys you or upsets you or who does. And you you simplify life. I think that's maybe a good way to put it, and that's maybe a good start for a lot of people.
See, you managed. You did answer my question.
Oh, that was not easy, but I hope it helps somebody.
That is really beautiful. And I think sometimes we get a bit hung up into holding on to things as opposed to letting them go. But it was beautiful how you put it, being the custodians of things for a while, and then we need to let them go so somebody else becomes, a custodian, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I really, sorry to cut you off. I just want to
No.
say that it's not just about being the custodian for a while, but what really matters is the memory of those things that have brought you joy or not, and being able to let them go. Music conjures up memories of the past, and so do items, and so on and so forth. I've actually got a dressing table that has been in my life all my life from when I was a child. It's of no value, but it's traveled across the world with me, and it was actually my mother's before it was mine, and it brings me joy. The memory of that will stay with me. And the reason why I talk about that is because when we die, dare I say, we carry on the memory of our life. So what memories do you want to make? And what memories do you want to hold on to? And would you rather keep filling up your mental cup with and your consciousness with joyful things, or do you want to keep it cluttered with everything that doesn't necessarily bring you joy? So if you think about in terms of a continuation of life beyond the physical world, do you want to hold on to regrets and what ifs and buts, or do you want to have a plethora of memories of joy and things and people that brought you joy?
Penny, that's beautiful. And I think we should end on that note. Thank you so much.